It was, it was doing the right thing all the time. It's nothing flashy. Even today, right? I graduated coming up on 10 years ago. It's the same program. It's not flashy. It's not turning it into this new style of doing things. It's putting your head down and going to work. It's a bunch of tough, hardworking guys that love each other and want to work for each other, and it's worked every year. And that's one thing I love about the program and about these coaches is they haven't faded away from it. It works. It's shown that it works, and that's Penn football in my opinion.
I've talked to a lot of Penn players, including some of those aforementioned guys who played in the National Football League, who played in some of the biggest football venues on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And to a man, they have said their favorite moment of playing football was with their high school buddies at Freed Field and being a part of the Penn football program.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing at a cathedral over here on the north side of South Bend, which has a tremendous football tradition. I'm not asking you to compare A and B,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of guys would say that my time as a Penn football player was as special as anything that's ever happened in my life. So just kind of expound on that.
So, I started playing football in third grade, 9 years old, Rocket football. That's where it all starts. And it's with that same group of guys that once you finally get to Penn after all these years of going to the games and just dreaming about that day, you finally get there and it's with that same group of guys since third grade. So, moving on to college, it's not the same experience, right? All different walks of life. These are guys that you create a bond with, but not from the time you're 9 to the time you're 18. So you'll never have anything like that again. We talk about, I don't know how many people have mentioned senior speeches. I think they're intended to last, I think everyone's supposed to take about, 2 to 5 minutes, and it turns into each guy some guys take 30 minutes up there just telling lifelong stories with these guys that you've built tremendous relationships with. And, I go back to, when I was still at Notre Dame, they were prepping for state, and they came over and did a workout in the Loftus Center, our indoor. And I spoke with the team after, and I was about in tears just talking to the guys because it took me right back to that moment of, sitting there and being with my closest friends. And, it hit me extra hard because, I never had the opportunity to play in a state game. And I thought we had one of the most talented teams to ever come through, and we didn't get it done. And, so that bond, even to this day, those are still, I have buddies from Notre Dame that I talk to every day, but I have, at least a couple guys who deep down are my best friends that I still talk to and lean on for support and mentorship, and it's just different.
How much did the Penn coaching staff, the Penn technical aspect of learning your position,
Mm-hmm.
being a part of their system, being a part of their educational aspect of football, prepare you for your next level at the University of Notre Dame? And also, if you can, it may or may not be fair, how did the other guys who didn't have a great program that came from, they may were just
Mm-hmm.
a gifted athlete, but they didn't have the teaching that you were fortunate to have? And can you make some comparisons?
Yeah, so obviously as you go to the next level, everything becomes a little bit more complex. So what I loved about Penn is you keep it simple and you master the basics. So once, if you can do that, master the basics, you have that foundation so that when you go to the next level, you're just building upon it. And that's what Penn does best. I can remember, from training camp all the way through the season, every day we'd go through our steps that we'd take on the line. At the time, I'm like, oh, this is a waste of time. Why are we doing this? But then you look back and you're like, wow, looking back at my footwork watching a game, it just became natural. It was easy. Didn't even have to think about it. And then there's guys, when you go to the next level, that were never taught that. They made it off of pure athletic ability. and those are the guys that tend to struggle because, everyone has that athletic ability once you get to that level. It's, who's mastered the basics and who has that foundation, and that's what Penn does best.
Did you realize it later on in life how good your coaching staff was? Or did you realize it when you went to Notre Dame, how good your high school coaching staff was? Or do you realize that every single day now that you're a father in the real world, how good that coaching staff was?
I think it's a combination of all three. Truly blessed to have not just coaches, but guys that truly cared for me, cared for my well-being, cared for what kind of man I was outside of not just caring about what kind of football player I was. That's important, especially now as, becoming a father, and you see you want the people who are going to be coaching and teaching your kid to care about that instead of, the sports side of it. So, I realized it then, but it means even more now.
All right, I want you to take me back to the moment every high school player has to take off that helmet for the last time, have to turn in that jersey. I've talked with coaches I think it's just as emotional for them, if not more, than it is for you as an athlete. So what was it like when you had to take that helmet off, turn that gear in? How emotional a moment was that for you?
It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. We lost the regional game to Maryville, 21-20, after being up. I think the hardest part about it, and don't get me wrong, it's hard for everyone. I think it was, I was one of the fortunate ones because I knew that I was going to get to put a helmet on again, right? But to know, going back to that bond with your brothers, that never ever again was I going to get to do that with that same group of guys, that's what makes it hard. I think we all had to go around and take pads off each other because no one really wanted to do it themselves.
There was an interesting tradition that the seniors had at Penn before they built the turf. And the turf on there, the guys would go out there and they would slide around after they got the field a little wet. And I thought that was one of the neat Penn traditions. I'm also putting some stuff in this book about interesting Penn traditions. What is a Penn tradition that you always look back on as really fun and maybe a little bit interesting?
Family dinner, team dinners, senior sleepovers, the Moms Club. I think that's a huge one. The signs. I mean, I feel like I can go on and on and on. There's, that's always a big day. You get that sign with your number on it, and you put that stake in your front yard. That's pride in being part of the team, and you want people to know you're a part of that team. Bumps and bruises. Not something you always look forward to on Saturday mornings after a game, but those are part of those traditions that I'll never forget.
All right, so you take that helmet off, and you go in, you sit down and talk to Coach Corey, and the ensuing weeks go on, and you talk about going to college. And so how did Corey and his staff prepare you for the next level, not on the field, prepare you mentally and emotionally to be able to play at the next level?
I think the biggest part of it was I expected to do great things. Being part of a winning tradition, a winning team, a winning program, my expectations were higher than I think a lot of guys when they came in. So never being satisfied. We go in every year expecting to be in the state championship game. The goal isn't to win the NIC, to win the sectional. We expect to do that, but that's not the goal. Right? It's to get to the state title game and bring another one home. So, my expectation going to the next level was to be a starter, get to play, and then I wanted to become an All-American. Like these were expectations from day one for me. It wasn't just to come in and earn a spot, it was, come in and get after it and be a contributor. And that was something instilled from day one at Penn as well.
Okay, so I had 2 daughters and finally ended up having, the third time was a charm, we ended up having twin boys. Okay, so I understand where you're at right now, so I get that.
Yep.
So if God gives you that opportunity to sit down with your son and you get a chance to explain one Penn moment to your son that defines what the Penn football experience would be. And you may want to do it with your daughter too. What is that one defining Penn experience or moment that you want them to know about what you experienced?
I think the biggest thing would be, I don't know that I can wrap it into one experience.
Exactly.
I think the biggest thing that I would want him to realize is to not take anything for granted. I cherish every day the moments I had with that group of guys. One of my closest friends isn't even with us anymore. So you look back at the times that we had and truly cherish them, because it goes by like that. It seemed like I waited for so long, and then it came and went really quickly. So just not taking it for granted, for sure.